I've got a feeling these tyres are going to send me absolutely insane. Dude, you've just got to get the Michelin Power Cup. I'm not entirely sure that I can actually use these. So my max pressure on this tyre is 73 PSI, but the recommended pressure is 81. They just felt awful, like I had a flat tyre. And you can see, lost a whole lot of pressure. Let's get some air in these things. Just keep giving them a squish. Very, very narrow window of operation. It's more prone to burping. I'm seeing if I can find a bit that will burp. Oh, there's a bit. Help, because none of this was making any sort of sense to me. Today we have the new Michelin Power Cups. This is your idea. After the last review of the Goodyears, loads of you in the comments were like, dude, you've just got to get the Michelin Power Cups, give them a go. And also, quite a few of you suggested I should give the non-tubeless version a go with these crazy light inner tubes, which we're going to do. But before we do that, we need to fit these things. I'm not entirely sure that I can actually use these. The reason I say that is these are the 30 millimeters, the widest tyre they do in the tubeless range. They do a 25 and a 28. And I think we've had videos before saying that 25 on tubeless is not a great idea. But this is the 30 millimeter, and there's a little barcode on the side here, and I'm just scanning this and going through, and for my weight, which is about 84, 85 kilos, it's saying that I need to run these at about 81 PSI. And here on the sidewall of the tyre, they do it slightly different. There's nothing on here, by the way, that says you can use these hookless. These are purely a hooked design rim, which we're definitely going to be using. So, and on here, quite an unusual marking actually. So it says inflate to 4 bars, 58 PSI minimum, 6 bars, 87 PSI maximum on a 19C rim. That's pretty narrow by today's standards. I think you'd struggle to find a 19C rim these days. And then 5 bars, 73 max on a 21C rim. So we are fitting these to a set of fast forward Riots, and these are hooked and 21 millimeters. So my max pressure on this tyre is 73 PSI, but the recommended pressure is 81. So I don't think I can actually safely fit these. I'm going to fit them because I normally run my pressures at around 60, 65, 66 PSI. And if I can make that work, then I'll test them. If I can't make that work, this test is dead in the water and we'll move on to these beauties. Right, let's see how these mount up. That was very easy, about the same as a Pirelli. Let's see how they inflate. That's 40, looking good. Just checking that it's seating okay. That's 60 PSI. And that has actually seated at 60 PSI, which is brilliant. Let's get some fluid in here. By the way, look out for these coming to the shop soon. These are tubeless syringes. Let's pop 40 ml in there. Nice and clean. Remember, when you do this, now rotate the wheel so that all the fluid is back at the bottom. Pop the wheel back on. Add some air. So I've got this at 70 PSI, and I'm just going to use a pressure gauge to bring that down. So this is 66. Let's try 66. And watch, just make sure there's no evidence of that bead moving. It's seating okay. Actually, that does feel pretty firm at 66 PSI. All this white stuff is just like the releasing agent. I'm hoping that'll come off pretty quick in the first ride. I do feel very, very grippy. So this is the first long ride out with these tyres. Set off this morning with them at about 70 PSI, and they felt a little bit overinflated, but gradually through the ride they've just been getting better and better. I know that the tubeless fluid hadn't quite sealed them up, but I was hoping it was going to seal as I've gone round. But I've just come down this descent and they just felt awful, like I had a flat tyre. So I pulled over and we're going to take a look at the situation. And you can see they are definitely lost a whole lot of pressure. I haven't got a pressure gauge with me today, but we need to put some more into this. Now, I kind of liked how they're feeling about 20 minutes ago, but that's not very useful to me because if they're still leaking, I need to put a little bit more in to get me around the ride. So let's get some air in these things. I think most YouTubers have been sent one of these electric inflation devices. They're actually quite handy for doing this. Really wish I'd brought my pressure gauge with me. It would have been so useful. This front one's gone down really flat. Just look how squishy they've become. Just keep giving them a squish. That feels like they were this morning. Let's see how long that's going to last us. That feels a whole lot better, but I've got a feeling these tyres are going to send me absolutely insane. If you can see, but look at this magnificent bird. Absolutely beautiful. Back in the workshop, and so far I've ridden about 150k over the weekend on these tyres, first ride. And what I'm discovering is they've got a very, very narrow window of operation, like just a few PSI, and it's not helped by the fact that they're leaking. So what I'm going to try and do today is stem the leak so that we can at least control our tyre pressures a bit. Now, I worked on this one yesterday, so I know this situation is going to work. I'm going to show you what I did with the back tyre and then just sort of show you some of the stuff we use. So let's take a look. This is my Look 765 Optimum. You've seen it on the channel before. Still absolutely loving it as a sort of general cruising bike. I just love it. It just sort of rolls around. It just feels effortless to ride. It's not the most sort of fun, exciting, racy bike, but for just those long days out in the hills, it's brilliant. And I'm loving the one by for that situation as well. Not for everybody, but for those cruisy days, absolutely brilliant. Right, let's get this tyre off. I mean, this is virtually flat. There must be like 5 PSI in it or something. What's important when you do this is to break both parts of the bead, both sides. And that way you should be able to get this tyre off, probably without any tyre levers at all, to be fair, but I'm going to use one because I just don't want tubeless fluid on my shorts. Yeah, actually you can see I put a good 40, maybe 50 millimeters of tubeless fluid in there, and it's almost all just around the sidewalls. They were quite porous. It took a long time for them to sort of seal, and it still hasn't sealed up properly. So let's get that off. There's hardly any fluid there now. Let's give this all a good clean. Now, it's important that you really get into the bead as well. So if you need to do that, I wrap a cloth around the tyre lever and just try and get any sort of residue out. These are a hook trim, so you've really got to get in there and clean that fluid out. And you can see actually this tape is just starting to lift. So I think we're just going to give that a clean up as well. So what I was finding when we were riding is I thought I had all the sidewalls sealed up in the workshop the first time. It was obviously still leaking. And when it got quite low, not dangerously low, but it got quite low, it was more prone to burping. And once it burped a couple of times, that was it, game over. You were definitely, tyre pressure too low, and I had to stop and pump them up. Going to see if we can secure this a bit better. For those of you who don't know what burping is, it's literally when you might lean into a corner or hit a pothole and the bead just escapes this little bead hook just enough, and you kind of get a psst of air, you know, probably just enough to like drop, I don't know, 1/3 of a PSI or something like that as it goes. There you go, just making sure we get all of this gunk out of the bead. Now, I'm going to replace the valve as well because my valve on my front wheel got a little bit damaged in a leaning up against the cafe wall situation. It's not leaking, it just doesn't look very good. So I'm going to take this opportunity of putting some new valves in. Also, where's that loose bit? So this only goes back, I think what we'll do is we'll just cut that off. Yeah, there's plenty of tape on here. Thanks, Ben. So top tip when you're removing tubeless valves, people sort of get involved in pliers. What you really need to do is push down on this, and you're trying to compress all this rubber. And as you do that, it will give you enough to be able to undo this little lock ring and remove the little O-ring. So the valves I'm using, I do like to use PTs, but I've only got the PTs valves in a 60mm, which isn't quite enough for my 55mm deep rims, and I couldn't get hold of the 80s. So what I am using is the Cafe Latex valves. These are quite cool, especially if you've got Mavic rims, because you can buy them in sort of the Mavic square shape. And then there's a little, then we've got this little circular section that you can just slide over and adapt the valves. So fairly handy. And again, like when you're doing this, really push hard on this piece of rubber, really try and push it into that valve hole and then tighten it up. Shouldn't need to use pliers or anything like that, or mole grips or anything, just pressure on here and do it up with your finger tight. Cool, tyres on. Again, if you start at the valve on the first side and then finish at the valve on the second side, making sure that everything's in the drop channel. And at this point here, I'm going to stop and put some sealant in. I like to use, this is Effetto Mariposia Cafe Latex. It's kind of my sort of go-to for most road applications. For mountain bikes, we tend to use the PTs. If we really have porous sidewalls like we find on Schwalbe, I like to use the orange seal, but for us, this works in like most situations. This is a syringe, pop that in, and we're just going to draw out about 40 mil. I know some people like going into the valve, but I actually just like to do it in the tyre, so I'm just going to squeeze this into the tyre. I'm also going to use some of this. This is the Effetto Mariposia VitaminCL. The reason I'm going to use this is because these beads are the problem, that little bit of burping, there's a little bit of a gap there to fill. So this seems to have worked on the front wheel to help seal up those little gaps. And there's instructions on here. You lose 1 little cup for about every 50 mil. Give it a stir. And then when you pick your tyre up, just move all the sealant out of the way. And then seal up your tyre. This little inflator we use, by the way, this is from a company called Velo tools. It makes some really cool stuff. Just really watch the whole time. If you see, I mean, this is a hooked rim, so there shouldn't be any problems. On a hookless, I just do this very carefully and bring that up to 70 PSI. The max for these is 73, so 70 PSI is more than enough. And what we're going to do is just going to give the tyre a shake. We're just trying to get that sealant, which will be sat down here in a little pile, just swished up and down the sidewalls. Just keep working it around. I've just got some soapy water in here. It's like Johnson's baby shampoo, which we use for Invisiframing, which is really good. I'm just going to give this a bit of a spray and sort of wipe it with your hand. So you're just trying to get a coating over everything. I'm trying to go around to the nipple holes as well, just make sure that they're all sealed up. Now what I'm going to do is just going to check the bead. I'm just going around with my thumbs and seeing if I can find a bit that will burp. Oh, there's a bit. So you can see this. So just here's a bit where it's not quite sealing and it doesn't take much pressure just to get that to burp. I'm going to see if we can spend a bit more time with that just to get that to seal. I mean, when you're dealing with like rubber, there's always going to be inconsistencies. It's like a natural material. It goes into a mold. It's done at heat. It's really hard to make a very accurate tyre. And you'll see there's all sorts of lumps and bumps and bits and pieces. So check. Well, that's their resting. We're going to go upstairs and talk about a conversation I had with Michelin about their tyre pressures, because it's a little bit confusing. Tyre pressures then. I just got off the phone to Michelin because I was getting so confused. Had to reach out to the Michelin rep and go, help, because none of this was making any sort of sense to me. You see, when you get a set of Michelins, you get this little barcode on the side. You scan that, like I showed you before, and it tells me that I need to be running these in the high 80 PSIs for my weight. But the maximum pressure is 73. Michelin, first of all, sort of fobbed me off a little bit and were like, here's the dealer handbook, go and have a look at that. I got the dealer handbook, and it completely backs it up, if not worse, because in the dealer handbook here, the only safe way of running tubeless tyres, not just hooked or hookless, just tubeless, is if you run the 30 size and if you're under 50 kilos. Everything else is completely nonsense, you can't do it. So I rang them up again and said, look, are you trying to tell me that your 25 and your 28 tyres are completely unsellable because your recommended pressure is above the actual max pressure of the tyre? And they're like, what? Anyway, we went through the document together. It was like, oh, no, that's clearly a mistake. So Michelin have admitted that in the dealer book and on this little QR code, there is a big mistake. But that does beg the question, what is the recommended pressure? Now, in my experimenting, I sort of learned that anything above 68 PSI on the 30s was unusable. It was really harsh ride. My hands are going numb from the vibrations. It's very chattery sort of handling. Didn't really feel like you wanted to lean it into a corner because it just felt like you were just chattering across the surface. So anything above 68, no thank you very much. Below 62 PSI and the tyres would burp with my weight. And once they burped, you'd instantly lose pressure and you had to stop and reinflate them like you saw. So that gives me between 62 and 68 PSI as an operating window. And the lower end of that is definitely preferable. So you've got 6 PSI range, which isn't an awful lot to play with. And remember that I'm doing this on a 21 millimeter hooked rim. And if you pay attention to this, I'm actually going to put a little table up on the screen here, is The 25mm, you can only run on a 15 and a 17 rim. The 28 is for a 17 and a 19. 19 is fairly common rim width size, but it's definitely not that common these days. And the 30, which I'm running, you can only run on a 19 rim or a 21 rim. There's nothing about 23, there's nothing over that. It's just those rim widths. On the narrower rims, there's actually quite a large pressure range. You know, on the 15 there's a 42 psi, on the 17 there's a 30, 29. There's like an obvious window there. On the narrower rims, you get a lot of choice in your pressure. Once the rim starts getting wider, that gets really, really narrow to either 14 or 15 psi. You don't have a lot to play with, and especially once you consider actually how the tyre feels. So there's quite a lot to learn from all this situation. This video is going to come in a part 2 because I don't feel like I can really get into this tyre yet until I really understand the tyre pressures, because I think this Michelin tyre is really, really sensitive to pressure and I need a bit more time with it. But I want to put this video out as a part 1 to gather all your comments and your feedback and see how you're getting on with this particular tyre, or whether you just think it's just too much faff and you'd rather not bother. Again, all really useful, get it into the comments. Just so to be clear, like if you look at other brands, they're in a similar situation, but it's not quite as difficult to find. Pirelli, for instance, they're just actually written on the box just here. This is the 30mm, and again, Effetto rim size 17, 19, 21, anything above 21 not mentioned at all. Maximum pressure, big yellow triangle, maximum pressure 73, do not exceed, it's all there. In Continental, a little bit harder to find actually, you have to go digging, but it is in the little instructions that you get with Continental. This is the now infamous STR model, and you get this little thing in here. And again, there's still some weird terminology from these motor rim brands, because on here we've got rim width for well-based rims and for hooked bead rims. So this is something that you might be more familiar with motorcycling and cars, but the well base would be what's known as hookless. And again, for a 30mm tyre, we're recommending 16, 18mm rim widths, you know. So you've got to pay attention to these details because they can be quite hidden and actually quite mysterious language as well. So part 2 coming up, but also I think this video has triggered off an idea of doing a video called the freest upgrade you can do to your bike, as in it's free. Just understanding your tyre pressures, I think really can unlock an awful lot of performance in your bike. And I think that's probably worthy of a video in its own right. If you're keen for that video, let me know. I'm not quite sure how we can make it exciting yet, but we will try. All right, thanks for watching. Keep your eyes out for part 2, where we get more into these Michelins, and I'm definitely going to get those Michelins and a 28 hooked up with some TPU tubes as well. According to you guys in the comments, that's the sweet spot. So I guess we'll see. All right.